There was major turnout at the polls yesterday. More than 3 million people voted in Ohio's special election, with voters rejecting issue 1. Just over 57% of voters saying they wanted to keep the way we amend our Constitution the same. And to break down what was so impressive about this voter turnout, our legal analyst Stephanie Haney joins us now. Stephanie, put this into context for us.
Sure, Isabel and Laura. What we saw yesterday was incredible voter turnout for a special election, and voter turnout that was really right on the heels of what we saw in last year's general election. And to remind you, that was when a U.S. Senate race was on the ballot. So let's break down those numbers to show you exactly what I'm talking about here. For yesterday's special election on issue 1, from early voting to absentee voting and voting in person on Election Day, we saw about 3.1 million voters make their voices heard. Now, that's almost 40% voter turnout. Now, compare that to November of 2022, when Senator J.D. Vance was running against then U.S. Representative Tim Ryan for the U.S. Senate. We saw about 52% of voters show up for that. Now, that might not seem impressive until we look at the turnout for last year's August special election. Remember, we had to have that August 2022 special election because of our gerrymandered voting districts, and that's a problem that we still need to address. But last year, as you can see here, only about 8%, the single-digit 8% of registered voters showed up in that special election. So when you take a look at that 38.5% voter turnout for this issue 1 special election, it starts to look pretty impressive when you compare it to that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about the cost of this special election, especially when it goes on to Ohio taxpayers. What are elected officials telling you about that aspect of it?
Yeah, with a $20 million price tag, this year's August special election is definitely something people are talking about. And one reason that it's so controversial is because our legislature just passed a law to get rid of these special elections, in part because they cost so much. So I talked with Democratic State Senator Kent Smith, who was one of the people who voted to end August special elections last year, about that today.
Ohioans knew a skunk when they smelled one, and issue 1 was rotten public policy hatched by a corrupt legislature using deceptive ballot language and held during what could have been an illegal election. But the cost is one of those other really disturbing factors, in the respect that if you think back to August 2022, we had a second primary that year that cost about $20 million because we had unconstitutional maps, and so we had 2 different primaries. Now, fast forward to just this past week, and obviously we had another election to try to end majority rule. So $20 million spent in 2022, another $20 million spent this week, $40 million for illegal or unnecessary elections. And to give you some sort of context as to how much money that is, we're only giving Ohio food banks $30 million to feed hungry Ohioans.
Now, I also got this statement from Republican Ohio House Representative Bill Seitz, who also voted to end August special elections. And he reminded me that subdivisions and school boards that are in financial emergencies actually can still hold special elections under the law if they pay for them. And he also said that because the law doesn't say anything about elections for constitutional amendments, that this was not an illegal election, but he declined to comment on the $20 million cost of this election for Ohio taxpayers. Now, I also reached out to Secretary of State Frank LaRose for his comment on this cost, given the outcome of issue 1 failing, and also because he previously denounced August special elections. He said that these are efforts by special interest groups to get things passed when people aren't paying attention, and he hasn't gotten back to me yet, but as soon as I get a comment from him, if I do, I will share that.
Wow, a big deal. All right, Steph, thanks for breaking that down for us and staying on top of it till we got here. So thank you. We appreciate you.